Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Radha Krishna Chandra Radha Krishna Chandra Radhe Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Om Vishnupada Paramhansa Parivraj Kacharya Shtattara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Samstapakacharya Savior of the whole world Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanand. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 9, text number 48. Iti Vyavasito Buddhya Iti Vyavasito Buddhya Iti Vyavasito Buddhya Narayana Grihitaya Narayana Grihitaya Narayana Grihitaya Hitvanya Bhavam Ajnanam Hitvanya Bhavam Ajnanam Hitvanya Bhavam Ajnanam Tataha Swam Bhavam Asthitaha Tataswam Bhavam Asthitaha Tataswam Bhavam Asthitaha Iti Vyavasito Buddhya Narayana Grihitaya Hitvanya Bhavam Ajnanam Tataswam Bhavam Asthitaha Iti Vyavasito Buddhya Narayana Grihitaya Hitvanya Bhavam Ajnanam Tataswam Bhavam Asthitaha इति व्यवसितो बुद्ध्या नारायणगृहीतया हित्वान्यभावमज्ञानम् ततः स्वं भावमस्थितः इति व्यवसितो बुद्ध्या नारायणगृहीतया हित्वान्यभावमज्ञानम् ततः स्वं भावमस्थितः इति. Thus, Vyavasitaha, having firmly decided, Buddhya, by proper intelligence, Narayana Grihitaya, completely controlled by the mercy of Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hitva, giving up, Anya Bhavam, consciousness other than Krishna consciousness, Ajnanam, which is nothing but constant ignorance and darkness. Tataha, thereafter, Swam, his original position as an eternal servant of Krishna, Bhavam, devotional service, Asthitaha, situated. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Thus Maharaj Khatwanga, by his advanced intelligence in rendering service to the Lord, gave up false identification with the body full of ignorance. In his original position of eternal servitorship, he engaged himself in rendering service to the Lord. Please repeat this translation. Thus Maharaj Khatwanga, by his advanced intelligence in rendering service to the Lord, gave up false identification with the body full of ignorance. In his original position of eternal servitorship, he engaged himself in rendering service to the Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When one actually becomes purely Krishna conscious, no one has any right to rule over him. When situated in Krishna consciousness, one is no longer in the darkness of ignorance, and when freed from all such darkness, one is situated in his original position. Jivera Swarupai Krishnera Nityadas. The living entity is eternally the servant of the Lord, and thus when he engages himself in the service of the Lord in all respects, he enjoys the perfection of life. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is the conclusion of the description of Khatwanga Maharaj. Khatwanga Maharaj was a pure devotee of Krishna. Therefore, he was never interested in any material opulence or material enjoyment. And accordingly, even though he was situated as a king, he was doing his duty as a king, but he was doing it in Krishna consciousness. So, Khatwanga Maharaj was always alert about the fact that our life in this body is limited, and any moment death can come, and we have to change our body, and to be prepared to change the body in such a way that one does not again take birth. One should be very alert to be properly situated in Krishna consciousness, and consequently, at the time of death, because of being firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness, one is sure to return back home, back to Godhead. How does it actually work? That is described here. Because sometimes devotees think, when they particularly hear, for Ajamila, one spiritual aeroplane came from Vaikuntha. The same Vishnudutas who had saved him, rescued him from the Yamadutas, the same Vishnudutas came in that aeroplane. Well, now you are ready to go to Vaikuntha, come. So he was doing his devotional service in Haridwar, and then the Vaikuntha aeroplane came, and he boarded the aeroplane and went away. This is not like I am supposed to go from Bangalore to Vrindavan, so I wait in Bangalore airport. One aeroplane will come, and then they'll say, "Sir, your plane has come. Kindly board the plane." It's not like that. There is a certain requirement for us to be able to go to the spiritual world. So what is that requirement? It is described here very nicely. In so many different ways it is described in different places, to give us an idea that we have to give up all material conceptions of going back to Godhead. All material ideas you have to give up. Because we have experience in this material world going from one place to another by different means of transportation. Here there is no question of what is the means of transportation you are going to use. No. It is being situated. Tata swambhavam asthitaha. Being situated in swambhavam, original position as eternal servant of Krishna, being situated in consciousness of devotional service to Krishna. This is the whole secret of being prepared to go back to Godhead. Actually, even though it is said you go back to God at the end of this life, such devotees as Khatwanga Maharaj, pure devotees, they are always situated in the spiritual world, irrespective of where they may be physically present. They're always in the spiritual world because they're always situated in Krishna consciousness. So then why is it said here, hitva anya bhavam ajnanam? He gave up false identification of the body full of ignorance. What's the reason? He is always situated in Krishna consciousness. That's the reason when he was offered some benediction, he said, how much time more do I have to live? So why is he asking that question? Because he's always alert and aware that his main business is to simply fix his mind, his attention, his consciousness on Krishna. And in that way, whenever death comes, he is ready to go back to Godhead. This going back to Godhead at the time of death is because one is forced to quit this body. The soul has to leave the body. So if you leave the body, then what happens to the soul? Will the soul be simply suspended in the atmosphere, enter into void, or enter another material body? No. For a pure devotee, there is no question of entering another material body, merging into void, merging into Brahman, being situated as a ghost. No, none of these things. For a pure devotee, it is quitting this body because he has to take up devotional service according to the will of the Lord, wherever the Lord wants. So really speaking, for a pure devotee, going back to Godhead is not even transferred to Vaikuntha, because he is always situated in Vaikuntha. There is question of transferring to Vaikuntha. In terms of his consciousness, he is in Vaikuntha consciousness. Everywhere is Vaikuntha for him, because everywhere he sees opportunity for serving Krishna. Krishna is everywhere. Vasudeva. Vasudeva means the consciousness that the Supreme Lord is present everywhere, because everything belongs to Krishna. Krishna has entered into everything as Paramatma in this material world. Krishna is situated in the spiritual world as the Lord of everything, and everyone recognizes that, everyone is conscious of that in the spiritual world. Yes, Supreme Lord is the Supreme Controller, Supreme Enjoyer, Supreme Master. And they also, all the devotees in the spiritual world, they render loving service to him very affectionately. So, Krishna doesn't have to be present everywhere in the spiritual world like he is in the material world. Material world, he has to be present everywhere because everyone is forgetful of Krishna. They falsely assert, I am the Lord. Or they foolishly think somebody else other than Krishna is the Lord. So Krishna actually establishes a supremacy in the material world by being present everywhere, entering into everything, actually taking control of everything. Actually taking control. There's no need for Krishna to control anything, because he has got his agents who will perfectly control. Being empowered by Krishna, the agents will control. But sometimes these living entities who are rebellious, they misuse the facility for doing tapasya, and they become more powerful than the empowered representatives. So then immediately Krishna has to set right the situation. So either he'll empower somebody else more than the power of the asura, or he himself will personally manifest in an incarnation and kill that asura. So the point is that a pure devotee need not go back to Godhead, but he simply is always directed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, in doing his service. Moment to moment, Krishna is directing him. So when the moment of putting the body comes, because the natural law is that this body nobody can stay forever, whether a devotee or non-devotee, nobody can stay forever. That's the rule. So accordingly, the pure devotee also respects that rule, that there is a limited duration for this body. So when the time comes, okay, where is my next service? Accordingly, I have to get my next body in the material world for doing the service. Or if my service in the spiritual world, in my original form, I'll render service. In my spiritual form, I'll render service. So in any case, all the time the pure devotee is fully surrendered to Krishna. Therefore, for a pure devotee, there is nothing like preparing himself for going back to Godhead. But still, to teach us, Khatvanga Maharaj is Hitvanya Bhavam Ajnanam. He is giving up false identification with the body which is full of ignorance. That means for doing some material activity, it is required to identify with the body for a time being. Just like somebody tells me, you lift this book, then for the time being I have to consider these hands as my hands, and with these hands I have to lift the book. Is it not? These hands are not mine. I am not this body. Neither this body is mine. I am very clear. As a pure devotee, a person is very clear. He is not the body. The body doesn't belong to him either. So when the order comes from Krishna, lift this book with your own hands. And for the time being, my hands, these are my hands. That is identification. But when the time comes to quit the body, no identification with this body. This is not my body anymore. It never was my body. For a time being, doing some material activity, okay. I act as if this is my body. So this Hitvanya Bhavam Ajnanam is a lesson for those who identify with their body. If at all they want to avoid repetition of birth and death, give up their material uh, position, then they have to give up this false identification with the body full of ignorance. So, for somebody who is not a pure devotee, they have to stop all material activities which involve identification with the body or mind, gross body or subtle body. They have to give up all such identification. If they don't give up at the time of death, then they are transferred to another material body according to the consciousness at the time of death. That's a law. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalebram. Now, take the example of Bharat Maharaj. He was practicing Krishna consciousness very nicely. He had almost reached the stage of perfection, but not yet fully perfect. Before he could fully perfect his Krishna consciousness, he got attached to a deer. And that happened to be his end of life, almost the end of life. So when he was busy taking care of the deer, death came. And death always comes suddenly. So death came, and what was his consciousness? Deer consciousness. So the law works. But all the practice he had done, that is never lost. Over and above that, Krishna is very kind to his devotee. Krishna is very kind to his devotee. So Krishna, even in the deer body, Krishna gave him remembrance. What happened to you? Why are you in this deer body? Deer body, there is no possibility that the soul in the deer body normally will be able to understand, I am in a deer body. I was in a human body in my previous life. Not possible. But Bharat Maharaj's case was an exception. It was a mistake that he became attached to the deer. And therefore he was transferred to the deer body. But in the deer body, Krishna gave him remembrance. Makta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Krishna is always situated in every living entity's heart as Paramatma, and he gives knowledge, remembrance, forgetfulness. So he gave him remembrance. And because he was already advanced in Krishna consciousness, he simply had to be reminded that to perfect yourself, little more you have to do practice, little more practice. So even in the deer body, he was engaged in Krishna consciousness. Hitva anyabhavam ajnanam. Hitva anyabhavam ajnanam. And after that, quitting the deer body, of course, Krishna is fully independent. and his devotee can go back to Godhead at any time, from any situation. But Krishna wills to teach the others or for his own pastimes. Krishna is completely independent. So Krishna arranged that soul, Bharat Maharaj, be transferred to body of a Brahmana. Even though in a Brahmana body, in the third life, he externally behaved as if he was a dull and foolish person. Just so that he is never carried away by any external attachment, like he was carried away towards the end of his life in the body as a king and a renunciant later on. So this alertness is what we have to develop when we are practicing Krishna consciousness. While dealing with the material world, we should always know it is very entangling. Material world is very complicated and very entangling. And a devotee's mind is very simple, so that he does not get entangled. Devotee does not make material calculations to do devotional service. He simply follows the instruction of his spiritual authority. Of course, a devotee always follows Krishna's instruction, but Krishna's instruction may not directly come from Krishna, may come from another pure devotee, may come from a representative of a pure devotee. But the simplicity of a pure devotee's mind is such that simply he follows the instruction. Just like Prabhupada. I simply follow my Guru Maharaj's instruction. That's all. Very simple. So his Guru Maharaj ordered, preach this message in English speaking country. So Prabhupada is looking for an opportunity to go to English speaking country to preach. So when he got the opportunity, he simply went. He is not thinking, oh, this 37 days in this cargo ship, and then my body is old. And he knew seasickness he has to endure. Everything he knew. He is not in ignorance about the difficulty he has to undergo in traveling. But the order of the Guru, simply he has to carry out and depend on Krishna. Depend on Krishna. Whatever Krishna, whatever protection is required, Krishna will give me to carry out the order. So that full faith in Krishna at all times and simply carrying out the order of the Guru, being very much alert to carry out the order, and in that way their life is very simple. The pure devotee's life is very simple. It's not complicated. Many times devotees would ask Prabhupada, that you make everything very simple, but we find sometimes it's very difficult. Krishna consciousness is very difficult. Prabhupada says it's Krishna consciousness is not difficult, it's very simple. You have to just understand, I am very small, Krishna is very great. Therefore, I should simply follow Krishna's instructions. I should serve Krishna. That's all. Actually, it's very simple. It's not very difficult. But then, we have to deal with, in our conditioned state, the conditioning or the habit that we have. Before I do something, I will make so many material calculations. If somebody tells me, do this, who are you to tell me? Who is this person who is telling me? Why is he telling me? How is he telling me? So many calculations. Also because in the material world, everyone is trying to lord over everybody else. And supposing I try to follow also, I may get cheated. Material masters are not reliable at all, because every conditioned soul has the propensity to cheat. But we cannot extend that logic and doubt the words of the bona fide spiritual master, doubt the words of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, doubt the words of the representative of the pure devotee. No. We have to make a distinction. While a devotee is alert not to get cheated by a materialist, devotee is also surrendered to the pure devotee, to Krishna, to the pure devotee, and to the representative of the pure devotee. Both are required. For this, we require spiritual intelligence. Material intelligence is useless. Material intelligence cannot discriminate between the pure devotee's instructions and the materialists who try to lord over their commands, their orders. Cannot distinguish. Spiritual intelligence will help us distinguish. So the spiritual intelligence is given by Krishna. Spiritual intelligence you cannot get from any material source. It has to be coming from Krishna. Matta smritir jnanam apohanamcha. And Krishna has made arrangement how he is going to give that spiritual intelligence. As Prabhupada many times says, the order comes directly from Krishna, and that directly from Krishna means directly from Krishna through his representative, the pure devotee spiritual master. And for practical purposes, the spiritual master in this material world also makes other arrangements when he is not physically present to direct you. He will give you that direction through so many other ways. So we should develop that spiritual intelligence to properly get the direction and simply act according to that direction all the time. Then we are never in anxiety about getting cheated. We don't have any difficulty. We don't have any worry about resources. We don't have any worry about resources. Whether I'll have the resource to do it, whether I am able to do it. No. Ability, Krishna says in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, I am the ability in man. Paurusham Rishu. 7th chapter, which is the verse? 8th verse. Rasoham apsu kaunteya prabhasmi shashi suryayo pranavas sarva vedeshu shabdakhe paurusham drushu. Krishna says, I am the ability in man. So if you don't have ability, Krishna will provide. Resources, Krishna will provide. Sometimes we discuss among devotees, oh, we have to build this big temple, 120 crores. Then sometimes devotees become very concerned. How will we collect 120 crores donation? Can we really collect? So if you make material calculation, it's never going to work. Or somebody by dint of false ego may make some material calculation and think that, oh, I can do it or we can do it. That's also not going to work. It only will work whether it is 120 rupees or 120,000 rupees or 120 crore rupees. It's going to work only if we understand that ultimately Krishna has to provide through whoever he chooses as an instrument. In building this temple, Krishna is not interested that he wants a temple. The temple is simply a means for Krishna to engage so many souls in devotional service. So some people will give some donation, some people will give kind donations, some people will engage in collecting donations, some people will engage in utilizing that money that comes to actually participate in building this temple. So many ways different conditioned souls and liberated souls will be engaged in building this temple. Prabhupada's participation is also there in building this temple. Prabhupada will be constantly inspiring, guiding, encouraging the devotees who are under his guidance to actually work for building this temple. So, we should not see this actual figure, estimate. Because we are in the material world, we have to do some estimation. Otherwise, our brain won't work if there is no estimate. So, we have to do some estimation. To make a design, a proper design, obviously the architect will ask how big a temple you want to build, what kind of temple you want to build. So, the full design is ready. So, for that purpose, we had to do a design, we had to do an estimate. But after the estimate is done, because we want to build a big temple, so it will attract more people. More people will take up Krishna consciousness. Because the glitter outside is such that if we don't have a gorgeous temple, not many people will come to the temple. Most people will be attracted by the glitter outside this premises. So, in order to attract all the people who are attracted to nice, gorgeous building, so we are going to build a very gorgeous building. That's the desire of the Acharyas. You see, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when the freedom struggle was going on, he started this Gaudiya Mutt, Gaudiya mission, and he decided to build in the heart of Calcutta a marble temple, expensive marble temple. Who will give money, who will take interest in building? He never calculated, he never thought, how will it come, where will it come from, how will it happen? He never thought. He just wanted to attract the attention of everybody who is after these big, big buildings, attractive structures. So Krishna arranged one person, just one person, one very, very rich person. He came to know, he came to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Maharaj, how much will it cost? So he said, this much. Okay, I'll give. So like that, it is at a time when it was unlikely that many people would contribute, and time is very short, because Bhaktisiddhanta's mission is not just one temple, 64 centers, and in just 18 years, he started in 1918, he passed away in 1936. 18 years, 64 centers, and out of that, I think 3 centers outside this country. This country itself is engaged in a freedom struggle. To establish center in the country itself is a very difficult task. But in the middle of all that, he is not thinking of a movement only within this country called India. He is thinking of a worldwide movement. So he sent his disciples to England, to Germany, to Burma. 3 foreign countries he sent to preach. So the Acharya, the pure devotee, is never thinking in terms of material boundaries, material calculations, never. So we are also supposed to follow in the footsteps of the Acharya and previous Acharyas. And like that, we should give up this material calculations when the order is there. Order is there, you build the temple. Then don't make any more material calculations how this temple will be built. For the sake of engaging some people who are not into Krishna consciousness, we'll make some material calculations. We'll do some estimate, we will do some plan, we will do some phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. But these are all not for devotees. Devotees are simply meant to engage in whatever is required to be done time to time, as required, whatever is required to be done. So no material calculations when the order is there. Then the dependence on Krishna. Krishna will provide, Krishna will direct, Krishna will give everything. I simply had to be ready to carry out the order, that's all. That readiness to carry out the order. So similarly, Khatwanga Maharaj is teaching us how to be ready to quit this body. Before death comes, you should give up this false identification with the body. Which means that we have to situate ourselves, tata swambhavam astitaha, to situate ourselves in our original consciousness, which is Krishna consciousness. And what is the Krishna consciousness? I am an eternal servant of Krishna. My only business is to engage in devotional service to Krishna. That's all. So all the time we have to be alert. I should be engaged in some devotional service. Some devotional service. So even if there is 1 minute when I don't have some specific service Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This is constantly going on. Either it is going on in the background, when we are in the foreground, we are engaged in some specific activity, other type of activity in devotional service. Or if foreground is also not engaged in some other activity, then this background consciousness of always being chanting Hare Krishna will come to the foreground also. Then vibrate your tongue, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. That's what he is doing. What was in the background, that Krishna consciousness was always in the background. So that came to the foreground at the time of quitting the body, just before quitting the body. One muhurta more, one moment more. So what should I do? One moment more. To the foreground also I bring that consciousness, Krishna consciousness, which is there in the background. And simply fix the attention. Next verse will describe what he did. Actually, what did he do? Next verse will describe. Stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.